we will jump over to the Visual Edge IT hotline, where we are very excited to bring in Shehan Jeyarajah from CBS Sports. And if you missed it last week, he released an in-depth article that not only covered the transfer portal, but a lot of history of Cody Campbell, head coach Joey McGuire, James Blanchard, plus the impact and boom that Lubbock has seen. He also just won the Edward Aschoff Rising Star Award. Shehan, thanks for joining us. And just first off, hey, congratulations on the award.
Thank you so much. I mean, it was a heck of a week last week. My phone was blowing up. It was starting to glitch, and I think that this is maybe like the 14th interview that I've done since that story came out. So hopefully it'll give me something new.
Well, let me ask you this first. I mean, what drew you to writing this story?
It's funny. So I'm from the Metroplex, for people who don't know. I used to be at Dave Campbell's Texas Football, so for me, the culture and fan culture of Texas has always been something very near and dear to my heart. And, it's funny, right? I think that West Texas and Lubbock and Texas Tech have such an interesting, unique relationship because there's access to kind of the rural, you get the West Texas, all this sort of stuff, like a lot of other major college football brands. But I think the isolation actually makes for such an interesting dynamic between the university, the athletic department, and the community at large. And so that's something that I've thought for, over a decade at this point. When Joey McGuire came in, I think that he did a fantastic job of understanding that, tapping into that, elevating that. And I'll tell you what, too, one of the great things is Joey McGuire, along with Matt Dowdy over on the communications staff and their assistant coaches, they do just an unbelievable job with access. They gave me as long as I wanted to talk to them. And so it was really kind of a perfect storm of everything coming together.
This is Mike Gustafson here. Did you begin this project thinking it would be as comprehensive as it was? Because you're obviously, this starts with it's a football story. But you're talking to John Osborne, and you're going much deeper and big picture on this than what we might typically see from a football story. Did you begin thinking it was going to be that big?
It was always in the back of my mind, but I'll tell you what, I surely did not go to my editor asking for 5,000 words to be able to tell a story like this. I think he thought maybe we'd get a good 1,400 and toss it out and call it a day. But for me, I think when I got there, it just kept adding and adding and adding. And I knew I wanted to at least explore a little bit more of the community, learn a little bit more about the development, because I mean, frankly, even when I started researching the story, I came in with this idea of like, well, West Texas population declining, like that's a big part of the thing. And so is this a push to try to stop the decline? But then I was kind of blown away when I was like, oh, it's actually grown, whatever it is, 12% over the last 15 years. There's all this development. And on top of that, I didn't find the exact source for this number, so this is an unconfirmed number, but I saw that the median age in Lubbock right now is like 31 years old. So you're having people go to Texas Tech, stay there, have the opportunity to grow up in Lubbock, not leaving the way that maybe you saw 15 years ago or even 10 years ago when I was graduating school. And I think it's really impressive, and it made me want to dig just a little bit deeper into what's the dynamics and what is Lubbock doing so right.
So when you're doing the deep dive and maybe you have something like that surprises you, was there anything else that maybe caught you off guard that you weren't expecting to find out?
Well, I think that the phrase that you always hear from Texas Tech and Lubbock people is it's got everything you need. And, look, I think that I went to college at Baylor, right? We're down in Waco, and by the way, Waco kind of has undergone some similar levels of transformation since I've been there. But again, like there's an understanding that this is, where we're at ain't, New York City, it ain't LA. And I think that there's sort of this preconceived notion that you have, especially for me as somebody who's from, a major city, that it's like, okay, well, like you can kind of hit like the barest levels, barest bones of like getting to live a good life out there. But then you get out there, and I was blown away by the amount of amenities they have specifically for young people out there. You talk about the restaurants and the wineries and the breweries and the parks and the arts and like just all this stuff. Like, I don't ever want to draw too much of a comparison between cities, but like it reminds me a lot of like some of the original culture of Austin. Also the live music, I would be remiss not to mention, right? And that's not what you're expecting when you're driving out 5 hours into the desert, right? You're not thinking that you're going to find sort of this oasis that has a lot of stuff that even for me as a 31-year-old with a young family, like I would enjoy some of the things that I found out there as well. And so again, it really, I think, challenged my preconceived notions of the place, and it was something that I felt like was central to addressing the story. Because, I was asked on one previous interview, like, with college football, and look, at its core, this is the story of some billionaires saying, let's spend a lot of money to get players to Lubbock, Texas, right? That's kind of the easy way to tell this story. And, they kind of asked, like, did you feel like, oh, well, I shouldn't be cynical, I shouldn't ask these questions? And like, my thing was, I think that when you go to the big cities, when you go to the East and West Coast, when you go to DFW, like the narrative of Lubbock is one of not being good enough in many ways, is that it's isolated, that whatever, you want to say. And so for me, when I went out there as somebody who obviously understands the perspective of some of these people, like I really wanted to present, no, this is very much a place that is worthy of a lot more respect than it gets.
You obviously spend a good deal of the article on Cody Campbell and the Double Eagles story. What did any of that surprise you once you got to really dig into their narrative, the fact that these two played, him and Sellers played here at Tech, and just all that went into that? What, kind of summarize Cody Campbell?
Well, I think that there's, again, I keep going back to it. There's a lazy way to tell this story. And, I think the lazy way to tell the story of Texas and West Texas specifically is just talk about oil all the time and talk about the idea of drilling and, being a billionaire oil baron and all that. And so it was actually really fun and gratifying to learn more about their story because they have such a non-traditional story for people coming from the oil world. These aren't legacy, family oil companies. These are two guys who went out on the road scrounging for every single piece of land that they found in order to ultimately sell and make their billions. And so it to me was so emblematic of that West Texas mentality and that West Texas culture of scrounging for every scrap that you have and never knowing or never expecting to make it big, but trying nonetheless to see whether it's worth it and to believe that good work will eventually be rewarded. And so, again, there are so many parts about this story that almost like it just felt like they were falling out of my head. It wasn't even necessarily that I was thinking and sitting down and writing. I just had to grasp what was already there and put it on the page. And I think that when I learned more about Cody Campbell and John Sellers' story, it just had so many natural comparisons now to what they're trying to do with Texas Tech football.
Another part of the article that I really enjoyed is when you kind of went over some of the things that General Manager James Blanchard did, and I say some of the things like it's this light thing, but I mean just how deep he went into scouting and them knowing, hey, we're kind of leaning into this Wild West system that we have here. When it comes to scouting and recruiting and how the Red Raiders do things here, how does that compare to maybe others in the Big 12, and what stands out to you about it?
Well, the big thing that I want people to understand, and please make sure to read the story over at cbssports.com, is that this is not just a story of resource, but it's also a story of preparation. And what I mean by that is it's not just the fact that Texas Tech threw around a bunch of money when the portal opened. It's that they were very deliberate with understanding the holes on their roster and understanding exactly who the top candidates would be to try to fill those holes. Like I tell the story of Romello Height in my article, and he entered the portal on December 16th. He was already graded. They already had a valuation on what they felt like was fair to offer them with the resources that they had. He comes to Lubbock. He commits 3 days later. He doesn't take any other visits. You tell the story of Howard Sampson, where they're prepared from the perspective of knowing that he's a great player, knowing he's going to have a good valuation, knowing that they have exactly the resource in mind for him. And on top of that, knowing, hey, you know what, this is a player who has great relationships with Mac Brown, the former coach at North Carolina, and he only left because Mac Brown got let go. And so Joey McGuire and his staff FaceTime Mac Brown during his official visit there so that Mac Brown could kind of say, hey, I know and love Joey McGuire, and you'd be in fantastic hands if this all happened. So, there definitely is a money component to this story. Of course, Texas Tech was very competitive with everybody in the country, but I think that to miss some of the groundwork that they did to prepare for this moment, I think that it really sells short the amount of work that was done here and the amount of brilliance it took to pull it off.
The facilities are a big part of this article, and obviously it's a relatively new part of the story. It was in the works, I guess, prior to the House settlement and maybe the House lawsuit and all that, so it was really fortuitous timing for that thing to get built before all of the rev share and all those things that are so new to this and have really caused facility growth to stall just nationally for a little bit while everybody collects themselves. Describe what you see with those facilities and just, how it fits into this article.
Well, I think that, again, I go back to that phrasing that it has everything that you need, and this facility has everything that football players need to be able to not just spend their time, which is a huge priority of this facility, but they want players to be able to feel like they can be here any time of the day or night, but also to be the best that they can be, whether it's stuff to help with rest, recovery, strength building, relaxation. It just has every single amenity you could possibly imagine. I think that one piece that I really didn't get into at all into the piece is Joey McGuire is very much a Matt Rule guy. He coached under Matt Rule at Baylor, of course under Dave Aranda as well, but he, I think, really owes a lot of his mentality at the college level to what he learned from Matt Rule. And Matt Rule made those relationships a priority, and he did it in one way by trying to create spaces where the players were around all the time. And I think that that's part of why the facility was structured and formatted the way that it is. They have two separate player lounges in this facility that guys can be at all the time. They have a barber shop that, they come in once or twice a week and you can just have your requests ready. They wanted this to be a place where you could hang out all the time and feel at home. And I think that they've done such a good job of preparing not just for the on-field stuff, but also for the off-field stuff.
So, in this story, and you're conveying right there, from facilities, obviously just from how aggressive they were in the portal. All the chips have been pushed into the middle for this season. When it comes to striking while the iron is hot, how important is it to you for the Red Raiders to have success on the field from it?
100%. And, I address this a lot in my fifth section. I don't think people outside of Lubbock might realize that Joey McGuire is the first coach since the Big 12 was formed at Texas Tech to have 3 straight winning conference seasons. And he's the first coach since Mike Leach to have back-to-back bowl wins as a head coach. So, they've had solid success under Joey McGuire. And frankly, right, if he wins 8 games a year, like he's kind of been doing his first 3 years here, he might be able to coach for 5 or 10 more years at Texas Tech and never have to worry and never have that much pressure. But that's not his MO, and that's not the MO of this place, and that's certainly not the MO of Cody Campbell. They wanted to stretch this moment, especially because this might be the last time that you're able to take advantage of this massive inefficiency. And so there is a lot of pressure on this season to perform. There's no guarantee that they'll have a roster this good almost ever again. They won't be able to replicate the strategy that created this roster in 2026 and beyond. And, I kind of asked, what is the value and what is the point of putting so much on one season? And Joey McGuire pointed me to his 2006 Cedar Hill team, which Cedar Hill High School, for people who don't know, had never won a playoff game before Joey McGuire took over there. And he takes them to a state championship in his 4th season. And it changes the expectations and vision that people have of that place, both internally and externally. And it raised their level long term. And I'll tell you what, in college football, more than any other sport in the world, arguably, perception drives reality. So if Texas Tech has the ability to sell, what we can prove that we can win at the highest level, and you add that to a great coaching staff, and you add that to amazing facilities, and you add that to a growing metropolis, and you add that to, contention in the Big 12, then they truly believe they will have something long-term that they can add and really have an opportunity to establish their brand long-term.
Shehan, look, I think that's all the time we have for you, and we really appreciate all the thoughts and comments. And the article was really well written. I haven't heard a bad word about it. We're pitching it to everybody that we can. We're looking forward to talking with you and catching up down the line. Appreciate your time, and hey, congrats on all the success.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was Shehan Jeyarajah from CBS Sports. Again, we'll share the article as well on Double T 97.3's Twitter and Facebook page. Appreciate him, and we'll come back with more Tech Talk next here on Double T 97.3.